And if you're not generating profit, as I think I said to Matt a couple of days ago, I said, revenue makes you feel good, profits set you free.
Welcome to the CEO Bros Podcast, After Hours, with Brian Baldoff, co-founded, grew, and sold VHT Studios. Brad Baldoff, CEO and co-founder of By Your Side Autism Therapy Services. Matt Croak, the consummate entertainer, jack of all trades, and serves as our host.
CEO Bros, it's a Friday night. We already have a couple of drinks in us.
Burrito.
What are we talking about?
I never get a clink from Brad over there.
I can't reach over there.
Bad luck, I think.
Clinking with an empty glass.
That's bad luck. Right.
That's a great band. Is that AC/DC's third album? Yeah. Clinking with So we always talk about. So I want to. This episode we talk about revenue a lot, and I love topics that it seems like, revenue, but I think there's a lot of nuances. So what people get wrong about money, and we've said many times on the show, revenue is the salve that heals all wounds. Yes. But I think it's more nuanced than that. So today's the day we go more nuanced about what people get wrong about money.
What entrepreneurs,
right? Entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, CEOs, anyone running about what
they get wrong about money. And and I think you brought up a really good point, Matt, which is, or the first point about revenue, which is that there's so much emphasis on getting the first customer, getting reoccurring customers, and driving revenue that you forget that you actually have to generate a profit. It's revenue's great, but I've seen a lot of people where they put so much focus on the revenue and they get the revenue machine going that they actually forget about what a margin is and generating a gross profit margin. And I think it's important to know that you have to start with that in mind as you're growing your revenues, because I actually know a few people that have businesses and I ask them how they're doing. They always tell me what their revenues are.
Right. Oh yeah. Everybody does.
How much?
It's a bigger number.
How much business are you? How much business are you doing? We sold $100,000 worth of that. We have $50,000 in sales. We have $500,000 in sales. That's great. That's absolutely awesome because that reflects your growth. But if you're not paying attention to your margins, then you're not generating profit. And if you're not generating profit, as I think I said to Matt a couple of days ago, I said, revenue makes you feel good, profits set you free.
That is prophetic.
Yes. And so
I just sets you free.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can't really relax. Think about it. You can't really relax until you're generating profit, right? And so you can be generating all the revenue in the world, but if you're not generating profit. So that would be one thing that I would say that entrepreneurs get wrong about money is they got so zeroed in on revenue, they forget about what a profit margin is and why that's ultimately what you're trying to get to.
Well, now I'm questioning why does Shark Tank always start with that question? Like, what did you make?
But they do a very quick follow-up.
Do they?
Always. I was just going to say that when Brad was talking. Well, what are your actual margins?
Okay. So as a non-CEO, I'm probably not picking that part up.
Right. Yeah. Because the first one's, okay, it gives me a scale of how big your business is.
So now I know, right, I got you.
Doesn't tell me how healthy.
So they do need to know how big the scale is, because there's obviously a difference between 10,000 and $1 million. So they got to figure out, and then from there pivot immediately to revenue.
Right. Yeah, because it could be a $6 million business that's making a 5% profit margin. It's like, okay, I'd rather invest in $1 million business that's doing a 20% profit margin or 30% profit margin, because I could scale that, but.
Yeah, what I would say is I would say build slowly, okay, but ramp fast once profitable. Build slowly, getting your business, getting things in a row. Grow your business slowly until it becomes profitable. Then accelerate the speed of the growth of your business, because what you don't want to do is run into a scenario where you are generating a ton of revenue, but you're doing it at such a low margin, you're basically getting yourself onto a treadmill. Now, I know where Brian may go with this and say, well, you care less about profitability in the beginning if you're growing fast. If you're getting a lot of revenue, you could always scale back expenses, right, and become more profitable. But I would actually, Brian, I want to see what you think about this, is that I would keep margins in mind early on. I wouldn't grow revenues at all costs, because you may find out that you're growing something that's not sustainable.
Yeah, no, it has to be, I don't know what the term would be, good growth. If you're spending $1 to make $1, that's what I'm getting. Not a real business. And you see that with advertising all the time. People are like, oh, I did this advertising campaign, and it's like, we spent $100,000 and we increased revenues by $100,000. Like, well, you basically lost money then. It's got to be, because we've talked about it before and you just brought it up. You got to perfect the formula before you start to scale. What is $1 in generates $3 out? And that's what investors are looking for. That's, the key. Because if you start to scale and you haven't figured out how you're going to be profitable, you're going to be out of business real fast. You're going to spend yourself into oblivion. That's why I've said I've seen businesses that are doing phenomenal that have just spent themselves into oblivion. They're growing like crazy,
but they spent themselves into oblivion. And their gross profit margins are zip or minimal. Can you think of a time when because I can actually think of one, but can you think of a time when it actually hit you that profit was more important than...
When we ran out of money.
Yeah.
That was that. That hits you right in the face. Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
We were doing well. We were bringing on new customers and stuff. But I mean, I don't know how deep we want to dive. You brought up gross margins. There's gross margin, which is what's the variable expense to produce this product or this service. That's probably your most important. And then the rest is variable expense. How much do I spend on marketing, sales commissions, things that are discretionary. Because that you can control.
Well, you're saying, I think you said it twice. You're saying fixed expense versus variable expense. You said variable twice. You have your fixed expense as it relates to what your gross profit margin is from the product. And then you have variable expense that you can bring up or down to get more or less profit margin.
Not necessarily. I wasn't getting into fixed versus variable. I was getting into your gross margin is directly related to the units of product or service. Okay. So it's how much does it actually cost me to deliver one widget or deliver one cleaning service? Like for us photographers, they got paid 50% of whatever we charged the client. That was kind of our general model.
So that was a built-in expense that you're like, whatever the revenue coming in, let's say it's $100 for photographs, $50
is going right out the door to deliver
photographers for taking those pictures. So $50 out of 100 already gone. It's chalked away.
Right. We can't. There's nothing we can do about. And I should correct that because photographers are going to go nuts. It wasn't 50. It was 50% total. So that was photographers, editors, distribution, everything related to getting that photograph.
You beat me to it. I was going to be like, wait, really? Photographers got 50% of the...
Yeah, they're probably all saying the same thing.
And I don't know anything about your business. And I went, wow, damn.
Yeah. So then the remaining 50% is, okay, how much do we spend on sales and marketing and overhead? And then what that leaves is the net profit.
Net profit margin.
So the thing we have the most control over is how much we spend on marketing and sales. And, but there's a correlation there. The more you spend on sales, hopefully the more revenue you're growing.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, without getting too into the specifics, we run, obviously, an autism therapy business. There's center locations. Those centers generate X, revenue and profitability at the center level, okay? And so that we look as gross profit margin of a center, right? But after you allocate all the corporate expenses, marketing and billing and HR and executive payroll and this payroll and that payroll. After you add all that in and you take everything that is the corporate support for that office or those satellite offices, okay, and you start allocating the corporate expenses into it, that's your net profit margin. And if you're not generating a healthy net profit margin, I'll give you a great example. If you're generating a net profit margin, let's say you're out there, you're a business, you get started, I'm generating a couple points, 2-3 points of net profit margin. I would say I could take my money and stick it in a money market account and make 4%.
And make 4%.
So why would I take my money as an investor and give it to you to generate 3% net profit margin and take that kind of risk that your business could flop when I literally can go put it somewhere safely and make money in a money market account? So point being is, if you don't think ahead of time your unit economics of what is this, what am I going to sell it for? What's it going to cost me to produce that for my net margin of X? If that margin isn't healthy enough and you're not thinking about that up front, you're never going to get investors. Why would investors put their money into something that's not worth the risk if it's low enough and you can make more money in the stock market?
I'm gonna pull the curtain back a little bit because that's a great future episode, because how do you explain that to the employees when the employees are going, oh, you're just all after? No, we have, in order for this business to happen, we had to get people who gave us money. Those people expect a return. So this isn't this conversation, but what a fascinating topic of how transparent are you to employees so they understand that complex situation, because you're right. Investors will not invest if you're just giving them less than they can get.
If they put their money elsewhere in another investment. So that's one area I would say we'll pin that one to say revenues versus profits. Don't solely, even though revenue's the salve that heals all wounds, right? If you're not thinking about profits, you're going to get yourself into a major problem with cash flow, which we can talk about cash flow at another point.
Well, stick on this just one more second. What about hiring? So you're a new business, you're starting out, you're making some kind of profit, things are going well. You need a X marketing head, blah, blah, blah. You know that's going to now evaporate your profit. What kind of leap do you, or what decisions mechanisms? Oh, I got to laugh. So
I mean, that's what starting a small business is all about. Like we've said before, revenue tends to follow a curve. Expenses are stair step. And so you're constantly profitable, not profitable, profitable, not profitable as you're trying to grow. And that's why we had the episode about outsourcing. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, I want to try and match my expenses with my revenues so I can, as I scale up, I can bring on more people. Because I bring on a VP of marketing, all of a sudden I'm unprofitable for 9 months. If they don't actually do what they're expected to do, I either got to fire them or I'm going to be unprofitable.
That's why one of the notes I wrote for myself is that you really have to think about early on when you're starting a business. You have to think about every head that you bring on your business hey, it'd be nice to have somebody in customer service, or it'd be nice to have this or that. You got to know specifically what that individual is going to do for you for the rate of pay you're going to pay them. Because at the end of the day, let's say you hire a $50,000 employee, okay? Well, that's $50,000 straight to the expense line.
Right, now here's a fixed expense. This is what you were talking about earlier.
That's a $50 expense that just drops into your expense category at the end of the year. Now, whatever your profitability was, minus 50 grand. You better be able to justify what that person is doing for you and what type of impact they're making in the business. Are they improving quality? Are they bringing in more sales? Are they processing something more quickly? Are they manufacturing something faster? I mean, it's got to have an impact. Otherwise, you're literally throwing money into the fire. And so that's why we often talk about getting your first customer, finding customers, finding a great pipeline of customers, securing that revenue. Revenue is the salve that heals all wounds. But if you don't start with margin in mind and you're not thinking about profitability, your little revenue-based business isn't going to go very far. So that would be one thing that when it comes to mind, when we were talking about the concept of what don't entrepreneurs know about money, I would say they very quickly lose focus on, well, what are the things that are costing you? What are your expenses? It's all about just revenue. I got a bunch of revenue. It's like, yeah, but if it's one revenue times 1.2 in expense, you're underwater and you're losing money. So that'd be one thing.
I used to get on my soapbox all the time about that, both as a company. Like I always, kind of preached at our company, we do not want to be an expense on our customers' financials. We want them to think of us as an investment. Because we spend $1 million a year with VHT, we make $3 million because expenses are the first thing to get cut. Yeah. And so I give the same advice to young employees who are wondering where they should go and what they should do and what their attitude should be. And I say, never be an expense. don't ever be an expense at a company, because you're going to lose your job over and over again if you're just somebody that,
if you don't,
fills a seat.
That's a great point. If you don't influence productivity, if you don't influence incoming revenue, if you don't influence expenses being reduced in some way, well, then you're overhead. And if you're overhead, then you're expendable. Then you're expendable.
And you know what that sounded like? It sounded like he was developing leadership. Oh, it sounded like a little mentorship going on.
No.
A little development.
All right, maybe I can help develop people once in a while.
No, Matt, leadership would suggest that he's giving coaching and direction to his employees, and we already know he doesn't do that. We know my brother doesn't do
he
that.
admitted it. I mean,
and he's proud of that. He wears it as a badge of honor.
Tape, and he just contradicted himself. So you were helping employees.
I said to him the other day.
Darn it, I
said to him the other day. I said, "Are you sure you don't want to delete that out? That sounds really bad." He goes, "No, that sounds great. I don't develop my people." I'm like, okay, put a check mark next to that one. Good.
I will say recruiting anymore, so I don't have to.
Remember, revenue makes you feel good. Profits set you free.
Set you free. I like that. I've never heard that before.
So let's go to another money related.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, lifestyle creep. Okay, so what does that mean? Okay, for a new entrepreneur, cash coming into the business, maybe you have revenues coming in. Okay, maybe your bills are payable, 30 days out, 60 days out. So you have this, what you have as an entrepreneur, especially as a business that's starting to grow, is you have ebbs and flows of cash that come in. And sometimes you can pay yourself, maybe in the beginning you're thinking, I can't pay myself consistently, but you start to pay yourself. Do not be lured into a sense of, okay, my lifestyle should change now dramatically. What I've seen people in businesses do is they get this, and all of a sudden they're driving around a new car. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, oh, I just bought a boat. And it's like, okay, that's great. I'm happy for you. But how's the business doing? We're still, up and down. We're going, it's like, well, then why are you doing that? Like, why are you changing your lifestyle? So I just say that as an entrepreneur, and Brian, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, but just the reality is business ebbs and flows. You have cash that comes in more times and it drops at times. Expenditures, you got to be careful.
Yeah, so I agree
100%.
And I think I've told the story before. One of our investors, I would see him maybe twice a year, and he would always ask the same two questions: how's your wife, and what are you driving? And one day we talked about it, and he said, the wife thing, I've seen more businesses fail because idiot owners cheat on their wife or have an affair with their secretary, or, the family splits because they're never home, whatever. He said, and to your point, he said, people start making money, they buy expensive cars. He said, that's not in the best interest of the business, especially if I'm an investor. So, I agree.
If it's keeping up with the Jones, like if you want to learn about something, are you trying to keep up with the Joneses? It's like, that's not
I wonder.
how you should do
So
this.
in the acting world, you can tell those who are in it to be famous. You can tell those who love the craft, who love to act, and those who are in it to be famous. And you can tell because the second they get any success, they're acting like they're famous. And it's like, well, the fame comes after the hard work. Like you just want the title. So I wonder if it's. They just want the, well, I'm a CEO. Okay, but you've got to work hard. You can't have that car yet. I don't know.
We talked about this at one time. I never got into starting my own business.
Right.
I never got into my own business for money. But money was a byproduct of success. It was about, and we'll go into this more in future episodes. But for me, it wasn't about money. And I'll assure you that if my company or our company ever sold someday, and whether the company makes a little or a ton, I'm not going to drive a different car. It's not going to be like, say I'm going to go get some, $100,000, $150,000 car because I have money. It has nothing to do with it.
You don't have CEO 1 on your plate?
I do not. I do not have CEO 1. Broke guy. Yeah. Hey, unfunded bank partner needed.
Bank owned.
Bank owned.
It's not just personal too. I think people start spending on the business on frivolous things.
Yeah.
Especially office stuff. Like all of a sudden they got to have a better desk and they got to have artwork in the office. Like, do clients even come in here? It's like, every once in a while a client will come in. It's all vanity. It's kind of like you said. I want people to know I'm successful.
Yeah.
I want people to know I'm a CEO. That's the most important thing to me, not necessarily making the money, as opposed to, the real discipline of if we've made extra money this quarter, where can I invest it to make even more money next quarter? Mm-hmm. It's not by buying a fancy water fountain for the foyer or, an oak desk for my office.
I jotted this note down. I jotted this when I knew we were going to talk about this the other day, which was, it doesn't happen necessarily because people want luxury. It happens because their baseline of spending quietly shifts without them even knowing it. Meaning, you get money coming, you start buying different things. And as you start buying different things, your expectations become different. You start saying, I can afford to do that now. I'm going to go do that. I'm going to get the country club membership. I'm going to get a
box
fancy car. I'm going to get the box seats at exactly. I'm going to buy season tickets. They start buying things and their baseline for expectations has risen. And yet the ebbs and flows of cash coming in for the business is not consistent. And so I just would tell entrepreneurs out there that one of the things that I would consider is just to keep a watchful eye on that's not something that you want to lose sight of, is like your baseline could change without you even knowing about it because you're influenced by seeing more cash than what you've seen in the past.
I love the
term. To Brian's point, business and or personal.
I love the term lifestyle creep. Is that what you said? That's a great, it's a great visual. Like careful of the creep. It's going to get you.
Especially fixed expenses like, a skybox or a car payment or something like that. Like if you had a great quarter and you want to buy yourself a new guitar, that's a one-time expense.
Wow, that was totally you. Boy, that was not a random. Because I go, well, who wants to buy a guitar? Oh, Brian wants to buy. Would you like a guitar? Is that what this is about?
When we hit our next plateau,
you don't say it unless you want us to hear it. It's a guitar.
Myself. But that's a one-time expense that I can potentially justify. It's not hampering the business going forward.
He's using this as a sounding board to buy himself a guitar. Like, Brian, buy a guitar. You're retired. Buy it. Go ahead and buy it. But yes, to your point.
But so funny thing is, I never have. I've always said, like, when clearly, we get here,
we know.
I'm going to buy a new guitar.
We figured that out.
We would get to that plateau.
We know you're working it out still in your mind to buy a guitar. We are giving you the okay. Buy that guitar
at this point.
We have a couple more of these, but this is going. There was a deep dive. That's good. Let's save two for another time. Let's end. I have one final question on this topic, and then we're going to do a part 2 on this on what people get wrong about money.
Sure.
So, Brad, I know you cut your teeth in sales, so I'm curious of everything you just talked about. How do salespeople, when you talk about that creep lifestyle and all, how do they not get caught up in dinners and taking people out, and before you know it, their restaurant and bar bills are out of control? How tempting is that for people who are in sales to not let the cost of dining and entertaining potential clients get out of control?
Or are you just talking about purchasing personal items for yourself? Because taking clients out for dinners, fancy dinners and all that are typically, our company expenses. So are you, if you're owning your own business and you're taking clients, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, like a CEO, do you worry when you talk about revenue and be careful of the profit, and then you even talk about lifestyle? Do you have, I guess it's a question, do you watch salespeople go, oh my gosh, your food bill, your entertainment bill, or whatever you call it, budget is skyrocketing. I need it though. You're like, do you? How do you handle?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about employees doing it,
yes.
Yeah, I mean, you have to set a budget for everything. I mean, Brian talked at one point, we were talking about budgeting, and you have to review every line item for everything that you're going to spend. I mean, we do it every year with my VP of finance. We review every line item in the budget, and we set money aside to say, entertainment with clients, or X spend for tchotchkes, giveaways, right? Yeah. It's like, well, they can't just be an unlimited number, right? Because if people say, oh, they really loved it, let's buy a bunch more, it's like, okay, well, hang on a second, what are we using them for? So I think it's having a set, being in tune with it in budget at budgeting time, doing a line item budget for everything, any expense the business is going to incur, you should have a budget line for it. And then the second thing is discipline. You have to be disciplined enough to be reviewing financials religiously. You need to be looking and saying, did we just have a one-time overage in expense, or did we have now overran over the last couple months? Typically, CEOs, CFOs, executives in companies are disciplined enough to be checking their financials to say nothing's getting out of hand. It's a one-time overage. I'm okay with it for this reason or not. That's how I view it. I don't know if Brian looks at it differently.
Yeah, because that could eat away at profit. Like you're talking about watching the profit.
I think the CEO and the leadership of the company really set the tone. Because I remember back, before my company, I traveled a ton, and I was always very, everybody calls me a cheapskate. I'd stay at, decent hotel. I'd go to
never bought yourself a guitar
for dinner. Never bought myself a guitar. I bought the cheap seats, and then one day I went out traveling with the execs on a tour of the region, and they're freaking staying at Lowe's. They're parking in valet parking at the airport, the premium, $100 a night. We went out to dinner buying bottles of champagne and shit, and I'm like, oh. All right. Yeah, little did I know. So then,
they set the tone.
They set the tone, right? Whereas me, people probably looked at me like I was nuts because me is beer and pizza. Let's go to Barnaby's,
Yeah. Oh, Barnaby's.
Free parking. I know everybody loves Barnaby's, right?
But that goes along with that topic I want to talk about, which we can end on this, but degradation is imminent, which is basically whatever mark you set as the CEO or owner of a company, you should assume that each layer that it goes down, it's going to degrade. Whether if you start spending a very tight, okay, there's always going to be a little bit looser spend. There's going to be always a little bit looser work effort. How hard people are going to work, and I think that you have to set the tone. So it starts with what Brian said. If you're out staying at luxurious hotels and driving nice cars and this and that, or you're using company money not like it's yours, your employees are going to do that. And so I think it's something you got to watch for.
That's great. So watch your profit margin. Don't forget about the profit. It's not just about revenue. Watch for the lifestyle creep. Love that visual. And coming up in a future episode, degradation is imminent.
Yeah. Well, that sounds depressing. That's like apocalypse.
Great. You know what else is imminent? You hitting that subscribe button and following CEO Bros, because we will, another imminent thing will be at you next Friday. So until next time.
Next Friday.
Friday releases are imminent.
Hey, we spent too much money on these cups.